Ploetz, everyone. Steve Ploetz is here. His wallet is over there. So
It's the camera is actually propping on it right now. They lost one of the legs, so we had to.
that whole side of the building is actually being held up by the wallet right now, or held down, depending on how you look at it. So here's the question: is now the time to sell your San Diego real estate? Steve is what we call a graybeard, buy and hold guy.
Right.
The old-fashioned way of looking at real estate from the standpoint of, hey, buy it, hold it, never sell it. You've said it before.
Absolutely. And I stand by it.
You stand by it. So he stands by it. You should never sell real estate unless you have to.
Right.
That's what you've always said. And I was the guy for the past year and a half, 2 years, maybe even, who's been saying, sellers, you should really sell. Like if you're an owner, you have this plan to do something later, now's a great time to sell. I've been that guy. And just recently, I think we figured out that I was right.
You were right today and yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
You and I don't know shit about tomorrow.
Okay.
And what we will do is we will guess and we will speculate. And I think that I know you have your list of things to go through, but I'll throw the first. I'll cast the first stone.
Do it.
I think that there is a perception that everybody talks about. Well, the market has appreciated, and hey, San Diego market 6% per year, et cetera, et cetera. It ain't linear. I think we have a thought process that we think that appreciation from 2010 to now has just been on a 45-degree angle, and just there it goes. And now all of a sudden, what we're experiencing today, August 23rd, 2018, and the last month is additional inventory, price reductions, et cetera, buyers holding back. But I would say since 2011, we have had these periods of ebb and flow where prices get to a new echelon and buyers feel like, hey, I saw that house last year. It was for $500,000. Now you're telling me it's $575 in a year? Wait. So today, more inventory. By all the data that we'll look at, it still says seller's market, but absolutely today, there is more inventory than there is demand, and that's creating some changes, some shifting within our market. I don't think that this is the top.
Really?
Really.
Wow. Okay. Well, disagree. I think that the best time to sell your home was the beginning of this year. Maybe you could say towards the end of last year, but probably the beginning of this year where things were still pretty hot and looked like, hey, we're still going along at this clip, right? Like there's an endless line of buyers out the door. Go find a listing and there will be someone who will walk up and buy it. And there's a couple of problems. There's some really big macro issues. And the inventory thing is definitely one of them, right? The inventory has gone up a lot. Mm-hmm. But if you look at it, the reason it still says seller's market on all of the gauges, all the economist, bow tie guys gauges, is because inventory still isn't beyond 6 months. Like if you have 6 months inventory, right, that's considered to be a flat market or a neutral market. In San Diego, I think we've all sort of agreed that more like 4 months, because 6 months, we never have 6 months. So
are we all agreeing to that? Or you're just saying we all agree?
The San Diego Association of
Consumers, do you agree?
The San Diego Association of Realtors. Do you agree? 4 months?
I agree that the inventory that we have had in the last 3, 4, 5 years has been so minimal. It's been so bare. It's been unfair and, in my opinion, a bad market. It's because buyers inevitably feel like they need to give up everything in order to get into the market. My opinion, we need more inventory. We need an equilibrium, more of an equilibrium, because that's where there will be more mutually beneficial transactions. My opinion, for the last several years, these have not been mutually beneficial transactions.
Agreed.
One side is getting all the gold, one side is getting all the screwed.
Yeah, and that's because we've been like 1 to 1.5 months inventory.
Right.
Now we have more like 2.5 months inventory. So you would still say, well, that's still a seller's market. We don't have a balanced situation. We do not have, let's say, 4 months of inventory, which would be approximately 12,000 homes for sale, right? So we don't have that many. But imagine if we did, and I think we're going in that direction. If we had another 3,000 or 4,000 homes on the market, do you think that would help prices go up or down? Down. So if we are headed towards,
I love that you ask questions and answer them for
a
me.
balanced market, 'cause you try to always spin it and take control of the conversation.
Dang it, he's learned my tactic.
I'm on to you. So I have to answer it as I keep talking. So if we do get those homes, then what's going to happen? Then obviously prices have to come in. A couple other macro issues that are also factoring into this, and some of these things I didn't even see myself until recently. So in other words, I had
Wikipedia here.
I had my thoughts on the market were just that we had too long of a run. You can't have this long of a run, and interest rates are going to go higher, but we didn't know to what extent. The Fed has basically laid out the exact plan for unloading the mortgage-backed securities that they purchased during quantitative easing. So this is one of the problems. During quantitative easing, the Fed became a humongous buyer of mortgage-backed securities, which makes interest rates go lower because there's this huge buyer in there. All right, and when you buy bonds, the rates of return go down, the interest rates go lower. Now they are a huge seller of mortgage-backed securities, and it started in the the second quarter of 2017, where they sold $10 billion in one quarter. Not much, very little impact. The next quarter they sold $20 billion. That's when you saw rates jump. That's the first jump in interest rates was the second quarter of 2017, or the last quarter of 2017. Now they're going up. They went up $10 billion every quarter. This quarter's $40 billion. Next quarter's $50 billion that they're selling. And at the end of next quarter, the fourth quarter of 2018, they will only be $400 billion in of the $4 trillion. So they're 10%. They've unloaded 10% of the mortgage-backed securities at that point, doing $50 billion in that quarter. Then they're going to go to $50 billion a month. Okay, now if they go $50 billion a month, that's $600 billion a year, or another 6 years of that before they're flat, before they've actually unloaded all the mortgage-backed securities that they bought during quantitative easing. 6 years of $50 billion a month, and we've seen interest rates spike on $20 billion a quarter. That was the initial spike. So will interest rates go insanely higher? I don't know, but I'm expecting 6.5% interest rates for sure. I hope we don't get to the 7s, but we might. 6.5% interest. So you have this interest rate pressure, which has caused problems. You have greedy sellers, which has caused problems. There have been just a lot of greedy sellers. People who have put their homes in the market saying, I want top dollar, even though my home is not in turnkey condition, even though my home is not in top dollar condition, I want top dollar for my home. And sometimes they've been getting it, which causes problems. When other sellers see that they got that much for their home,
Right.
Well, Steve, why can't you get me that much for my home? So greedy sellers have been a problem. We've had, listing agents have had an issue. They've been up against it because they're up against all these discount brokers. There's this, there's that, and homeowners are seeing these homes sell. So a lot of times the listing agent, the only thing they have to say and the only thing they have to sell against the discount brokers and all the other things going on is, well, I can get you more for the home. I'll get you a higher price than they will because I do this, I do that. I'm more hands-on. That's become the main selling point, and the only thing to really lean on. And then the other thing that has been a macro mistake in the real estate industry, realtors are very powerful as a whole. The actions that agents take as a whole together move the market. They really do. And what you've noticed is that for the past few years, almost all agents have been focused on listings. There's like no one opening like buyers, first realty over here. And that's not been happening. Everyone's been looking for listings. Why? Because they felt like that's where the market was. That listings were what was highly coveted, and they were correct. And they assumed that there would be this endless line of buyers as long as we go get listings. But a big responsibility in the real estate industry and of realtors is to generate buyer interest amongst the general public, to be out doing first-time buyer seminars, to be doing home buying seminars, to be talking to people about owning real estate, about buying real estate, about the benefits of hedging your housing costs and all the things that come along, creating a great retirement opportunity for yourself. That hasn't been happening for years. And the problem with that is that line of buyers, when it runs out, there's no one out in the yard that you can call up to the door. We haven't been filling the yard up with people. The party's over. And that's the problem, is that we haven't built that pipeline of interested people in purchasing real estate. So we don't have the buyers to hold this inventory issue that we're going to have here.
So let me understand your argument, because you're doing the Steve Ploetz, like, let me tell you 7 different points so you can't remember, and it makes it really
He's
hard
on to me now.
It's really hard to argue the points. You're saying that one of the issues with our market is that the home ownership, quote unquote, American dream is losing flavor.
It's just out of sight, out of mind. It's not front of mind for most people. It's just not.
Because they haven't been able to afford it, or because they haven't been educated, or both?
Yeah, because they haven't been marketed to. I mean, people do what they're marketed to, right? I mean, people do, it's very rare that someone just does something completely, out of nowhere.
I'm with you.
We do stuff based on how we're marketed to. We learn about things because people market to us. Even if it's a referral, that's still marketing.
Right.
If you tell me,
Even
hey, this
if my
restaurant's
parents
awesome.
tell me to do something, that's marketing. I'm with you. Yeah.
But exactly. It's still marketing. It's someone influencing you and pushing you in a certain direction. We haven't been pushing people in the direction of ownership. We've just been assuming that everyone's going to have it on their financial roadmap to own a home. We just assume that, of course, everyone wants to buy a house and wants to own a home eventually. And they'll get here when they're ready. But it's not true. And we have a whole generation of people who it is out of sight, out of mind, not even on the radar. The whole generation. And people who are even from the generation in front of them that are kind of half and half. So there's action that needs to happen there that we're behind on. Now, here's the thing that is the biggest concern I have before we actually start looking at some of the stuff in the market. I'm not going to let you talk, so don't even think about it. Of course, you can respond.
Okay, good.
But the one thing, before I'll let you respond, is, unfortunately, this is a fact. Home values can go down much faster and more easily than they can go up. When home values go up, when you set a new price per square foot mark or a new high comp in a neighborhood, someone has to pay up for that.
Right.
Homes can't appraise for above what the comps are. So when you set a new high in a neighborhood, somebody's going into their pocket for that. However, if a home is going to sell $100,000 under market value or under the last comp, nobody has to do anything.
Right.
The seller just has to accept the offer. That's it. There's no hurdle to get over. So the market is much more fragile on the way down than it is on the way up. The way up is a very hard climb. Like, it takes a lot for us to move the market this high. It doesn't take much to take it down.
And you've got some valid points. Here's the big challenge, though, that I see.
What did you say right before that?
I said I was right, and you were also slightly right.
What's up, Kathy? Just saying hi. We are live on Facebook. If you want to say hi, if you want to drop a comment. It's a deep real estate discussion that's happening right now in San Diego, where I am so far fleecing Steve Ploetz.
Where's the scorers table? Like, are we keeping track back there?
72-0. So.
The big challenge is people have money. People have real jobs. We are seeing some of the lending that's going back to some of the more stated income. However, the vast majority of lending products are fixed mortgages, 30-year fixed, 20% down, et cetera, et cetera. I think that most people feel comfortable investing in something that is tangible, like real estate. And to your point, if the market drops, let's just say, you're saying this is the top. Tomorrow it drops 10%. What I can guarantee is there are boatloads of investors, amateur investors, that have cash and are looking for places to put it. We've talked over the last years and months about new demographics of buyers, of move-up buyers that have had equity in their home, whether a condo or whatever, and now we're seeing a lot of those contingent buyers. I don't think that that's entirely going to push the market, but it helps prop it up a little bit, in the same way that what we're seeing is assisted buyers that mom and dad have $200,000 that they're looking to invest, and they're concerned about putting it into the stock market, and so they support children in those ways. I think that there is always ebb and flow, and right now we are certainly in a pullback period. But as we've talked about, I think if we break down the demographics of if you're going to sell your house today because you believe, you've listened to Derrick Evans and he says it's the top and he's never been wrong, so I'm going to do it. It's the top. The challenge becomes the rental market has become even more absurd if you're selling a primary residence and looking to purchase something else. If you're selling an investment property, the gains, unless you're going to 1031 into something, in which case you're kind of in a similar market. My opinion is, I don't like the graybeard theory of hanging on to real estate because it's such a smart thing to do. I like it because it is sound and far easier.
Simple. Yeah.
It's simple, and for most people, as an investment, if you do it your way and you buy in 2001, you have to sell in 2005, and you have to buy again in 2010. Otherwise, that period of renting, and as I said at the beginning, I can be totally wrong. This could be the top. I think it's really unlikely based on some economic signs that I see. But even if it is the top, you got to get it exactly right. We did a discussion a long time ago that I actually looked at again before coming on today, which was the discussion about where I rounded the numbers, where it all began there in terms of a guy that buys and sells and buys and sells again. And if you don't get it exactly right, you not only go through the headache of sales and closing costs and commissions and those kinds of things, but if you're not exactly right, you also pay the price.
Well, it's true, and I want to make sure I'm advocating. What's up, Martin? I want to make sure I'm advocating. We are live here on Facebook. We want to say hi, say what's up, Kathy and Martin.
Is there a way to see if both their thumbs up are for me or for you?
Clearly pointing at me, I think, if you look at it.
I think they're
pointing this way. So, you make some good points. And believe me,
I'm sorry.
I want to make you make good points. Simple is better in most cases, and I want to make sure it's clear. I'm advocating for home ownership, 100%. I think that the smartest thing anyone can do is own a home free and clear. I mean, the best thing you can do for your financial future, the best thing you can do to retire comfortably is to own a home. No doubt about it. And I'm not saying everyone should sell regardless of your situation. I'm not saying, oh yeah, it makes sense, just sell. No, you have to. There's more things you have to look at. There's more things to consider in the situation. Schools. Where are we going?
Right.
So there's a lot more to it. Who I'm talking to are the people who've been waiting to sell. The people who are like, oh, we'll sell next year. We'll talk. Because I talk to sellers on a regular basis, casting for our reality show Win This Listing.
Right.
And a lot of people who are definitely going to sell. They've made their we're definitely selling. They're just not in any hurry. They're just like, And the reason is because they believe they're getting paid to wait.
And for the last several years,
they've been right.
They've been right.
They've been right, and so they keep getting reinforced to wait.
Right.
To wait.
Because they see another comp and they go, whoa, look at that new price.
And the problem is, Steve, when they see that comp bomb land in their neighborhood, it's too late.
Yes, I agree.
So the reason why I'm saying yes, the question is now the time to sell your San Diego real estate? Yes, if you're going to be a seller, if you know you're going to sell in the next year or two, I do believe that it will get worse for sellers for the next few years. I do believe that. And the reason for all the things that I mentioned previously, it's going to be more difficult to be a seller. I think buyers, what an opportunity. Buyers, holy smokes. Hey, start looking again. You got discouraged by this market? My gosh, start looking. Start paying attention to what's going on. You're going to find, and here's the reason why, and you mentioned lending. I wanted to come back to that. Yes, lending has been better, but lending isn't the only thing that causes
absolutely.
a real estate downturn.
In the same way that an interest rate bump isn't the only factor.
Those aren't
it's
the only
many
things.
Pieces to it.
There's a lot there.
Absolutely.
So in my opinion, what will cause this one is the fact that the run-up has happened. It's the same thing that happens with a stock. If a stock makes a huge run-up, the reason why it can fall so much is because there's people who have lots of profit in there. A lot of those sellers who are selling during that skyscraping fall down are selling for a profit.
Right.
So I believe that homeowner in that neighborhood who's already moved to Arizona, and has a few $100,000 in equity because they bought in 2010 or 2011 or 2012, is going to say, you know what, hell with it, just sell it. I don't care.
Right.
Give me an offer. Let's move this property. That's the comp bomb. So it's not even someone who's short selling or foreclosing, it's actually the family that's walking away with money in hand.
Yeah.
But they're throwing a comp bomb into the neighborhood that may throw off that couple that just bought. They just bought earlier this year. They just bought late last year. They're the ones who are actually going to feel the pain from that, but not the seller. So this isn't a seller's pain necessarily that we're talking about that's going to move it down. It's the people who have equity from the huge run-up that can sell at a lower price without real consequence that could cause those comp bombs.
And I agree with that. And you said at the beginning that you're not focused on absolutely every seller, that you believe, of course, there are certain demographics and it's certain, so you're not saying sell across the board. I'm not saying hang on to it across the board. There's many times where I get in many conversations of those sellers that you're talking about that, hey, we're ready to sell, but we want to get tip-top dollar amount. It's hard. It's hard to time it, sell it. In my opinion, we can talk intelligently about what you're getting today. Where you and I disagree is what it looks like in 3 months. And to that point, what I would say is if you're a seller that's thinking, well, let's roll the dice, screw rolling the dice. Take your money off the table that you know about today.
That's right.
Where it becomes far more challenging is for people that don't need to sell or don't want to sell but want to time the market and feel like, well, I'm in my primary residence, or hey, this has been a good rental, or et cetera, et cetera. And then, of course, there's the demographic that just needs to sell. Mom and dad died. I live in Kentucky. It's a San Diego property. Let's sell it. So I mean, there are certainly pieces to it. Timing the market is always very, very difficult, and I think
I disagree with you on that.
Okay.
Timing the market in real estate is not that difficult. The question is, does the timing of the market fit into your life situation? That's why it's difficult. It's not hard to see these things coming. It's not. I mean, the macroeconomics point to these things years in advance. I mean, the hard part is being patient enough, I guess, to like play it out.
We should.
But I mean, in 2010, I was on the radio every single day, screaming at the top of my lungs for people to buy as many houses as they could afford. It was so obvious, was it not? I mean, didn't you see the market at that point in time and go, my God, we should be buying the hell out of this market right here? And here we are. Now that was the low of that time, right? And now here we are in 2018, 8 years later, typical market cycle time, or within the range of 7 to 10 years. Doesn't it also make sense right now that we might be at the top? Doesn't it look like it? Doesn't it feel like it? Don't you see the interest rates? The stuff I was talking about earlier with the Fed and all the mortgage-backed securities that they have to unload still? $3.6 trillion worth. And they've said, we're doing it. Here's our plan. They've told us that that's coming. That's what's happening. Interest rates are going much higher, for sure. That will not help values go higher. You know, it just won't. And since we don't have enough people pushing real estate in general on the purchase side, who is out there right now explaining and talking and telling people that they should be buying real estate, if not realtors? Is anyone? Who's doing it? Nobody.
Yeah,
we're
lobbyists.
We're expecting them to come to that conclusion on their own. And that is the grave mistake of the industry as a whole, is that expectation that people are just going to flock to real estate, because obviously, that's a huge mistake. And we're going to pay for that. I think there's a lot more pain coming than what people are expecting.
I agree with what you're saying, that timing the market, I still think that timing the market is difficult. And I'd be willing to put down a wager on Facebook Live that the market today in 6 months will be higher than, we can pick a neighborhood, a community, a median price point. I think I'm willing to make that wager.
Okay.
And I agree that having it fit into someone's life is the tricky part, because if you're selling a primary residence to rent and its real numbers are $3,000 a month, which is asinine, that's $75,000 a year. I'm rounding to.
Wait a minute. $3,000.
There's $75,000 for every 2 years. That'd be $72,000 in 2 years. It'd be $36,000 a year. But if you wait 2 years, then you're telling me your $750,000 property needs to drop 10%, $75,000. $720,000 property needs to drop 10% in 2 years in order for those to basically break even.
Well, not true, because you also have to consider what was your mortgage payment versus what your rent payment is.
Right.
How much of that was going to interest versus deduction versus equity, right?
Absolutely.
How much the equity, because that equity piece that you're paying in, you have to look at that as being the difference between what it is today and what it is later. And then you can also factor in the interest. You can take a certain deductibility amount of that and factor that in too.
Right.
But you also have to look at how much are you then able to save. So if you're renting for $3,000 and your mortgage payment was $3,800, well, now I need to take that $800 and put it in savings, because that's, so it's okay to rent. Listen, it's okay to be a renter if you are taking money that you are, when you're renting, you're taking some money every single month and you're putting it into a fund that goes towards your down payment. If you're renting and you're doing that, everything's okay. If you're renting and you're spending all of your money, disposable money, on rent, and you are not saving for a down payment, you're making a huge mistake. That's a gigantic mistake. Now, it's okay to rent and sit back and go, oh, you know what? Hey, we're renting for $3,000. We can afford $4,000. So we're putting $1,000 a month into our down payment fund. That's okay. That's almost like owning. That's like saying, hey, this is just going to make owning easier for us later. We'll be able to put more down. We'll either buy a bigger house if we want to, or we'll be able to have a smaller payment by putting more money down. Right. That's okay. I'm okay with that. So you have to factor that in too, because if it was you were paying $3,800 for the mortgage, but now you're renting for $3,000, that $800 also goes to the kitty. So you have to counteract that in to that calculation that you're making.
Absolutely. And I would just say, I think what I stand by that makes it, as to the reason that I have taken the stance that I have taken, is I do believe calculating the top is still very difficult. We'll see you in our wager. The simplicity of staying, unless it's something that you really need unless you really have so much equity and you feel like getting out and sitting on the sidelines for however long this turn is going to take, or you believe it's going to take, there will be a shift. My concern is, what if today is 2003 and not 2005? What if you have to wait 2 more years for an additional run-up of potential equity that you lose, and then the downturn starts, and then your actual clock begins before you can jump back in, and you lose whatever it is. The last couple of years have been 6% annually, so you lose that 6% annually in rent. I mean, I agree that if we could calculate the absolute tip top, I'm comfortable selling and buying. But
here's the thing. I'll tell you something that a man told me who's sold multiple businesses for tens of millions of dollars. I'd rather sell too soon than too late. I do want to say, what's up to Rob Cunningham? Oceanside, $100 bills. That's right, $100 million. Oceanside's an interesting community right now where there's been a lot of movement there. Martin, what's up, Martin? Martin Mayfield says the people that have true motivation to sell. Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of people who are on the market, but they aren't really in the market, to sell. They're just like, oh, well, I'll sell it if I can get this much. Yeah, so that's the shadow inventory that we're dealing with right now. Oceanside's an interesting place.
Absolutely.
Really, really interesting what's happening up there. Carrie, why don't you go to my computer real quick? Let's just have a little fun here with Steve Ploetz. Now this is.
Hey, I recognize this.
What does that look like to you, Steve?
That's my hometown right there.
That's Vista,
California.
You can't see the word Vista because there's so many houses for sale. But now there's filters on this too. I do have some filters, but I'm going to remove the outline. Okay, so there's too many homes. It's not even happy. All right, so there's a lot of homes for sale there, Steve. Now, for people like myself who look at the markets and look at these things all the time, Redfin's a great website, questionable real estate brokerage, but is a great website and a great place to look at homes for sale. So, you can look on here, and a couple things I look at, Steve. First of all is, number one, how many homes are there for sale? How many homes? Oh, wait a minute. First, I want to get to Rob's comment. He says he wants the bet, 6 months. Rob, which bet do you want to make? Do you want to bet that the market will be lower in 6 months or higher in 6 months? Tell me which side you want to be on, because I'll take the action. I'll take your action. I'll take Rob's action if he wants to be on your side.
I'm good with that. $100 bet, you pick. We'll need to figure out.
No, you find a community that's higher 6 months from today than today, and you win.
In San Diego County?
That's right.
Oh, this is an easy bet.
Good luck. I'm serious.
Okay.
Good luck.
I'll look today, and I'll send you an email so we can figure out a baseline.
Okay.
Of either a community, etc.
You pick the community. You find one.
Okay.
You're going to have a hard time. All right, so look at the number. So the number of homes for sale, and then also the number of hot homes. So the cool thing about the hot home feature is that it shows you the homes that people are coming back to, the people that, okay, I'm with Rob. So you're going to have, do you want his action? Another $100? Cunningham?
All right, Rob. There we go. I'm in for
bucks.
200.
Done. Okay, 200. There it is.
And we're capping it there.
Yeah, I was going to say, anyone else want to comment? So the number of hot homes, not that many. And the price points also, curious to look at those. So we see here, and this is Vista, or surrounding area.
Yeah.
There's one here that's a hot home at $850. Okay, 4 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms, 2,500 square feet. Pool, pretty dialed in. That's going to be a higher end home. $850 for this one. I don't know. That doesn't look too updated. That one might say.
Where in Vista is it?
It's a
That's
hot home. It's
Shadow
south.
Ridge. Yeah, south of the 78.
Yeah, south of the 78. But it's a hot home.
That seems high.
It does seem high, but it's hot, which means that there's a lot of people looking at it. So it doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to sell super fast.
Right.
But what it does when it says hot is that it means people are returning back to it. So they're coming back after having looked at it once. And also means that there's a lot more people looking at that home than some of the other ones. Now, what we've been seeing is most of the hot homes are in the lower price points. Like this one here for $519, that's in Vista. 3 bed, 2 bath, 1,400 square feet. You see here, this one's actually got some updates, vaulted ceilings, pretty nice.
Rob, we'll do Oceanside as Derrick does. As Derrick clicks through pictures of that'll be good. I like Oceanside.
My point was that you can see there's a lot of homes in the market. But we're still not even at what anyone would consider to be a balanced market, inventory-wise. So if we do balance out, that would also lead us to lower prices. And since, as I have pointed out before, it is much easier for real estate prices to go down than it is for them to go up, my question for you would be, what is the catalyst higher? I've given you 5 or 6 macro problems. I don't say problems, but macro facts that are leading to lower real estate values. Where can you give me one? That
Of course, I can give you many. I think. I think to me the big place is if you have income right now, if you have good job, stock market is up. Where do you put your money that it makes a solid investment? And we can choose specific stocks. We can look at the NASDAQ and the Dow as a whole. I have found that there are a fair amount of buyers that feel like it still is a good opportunity to invest and to look for rental property because rents are so high. And essentially what you get is you get a dividend. You end up purchasing a vehicle that we disagree on whether it's going to appreciate or stay the same or go lower in value. And in my opinion, it's going to appreciate. But many of these people look at their ROI and go, wait a second, you're telling me I can buy a duplex. I showed a duplex 2 days ago that's down in Chula Vista. Chula Vista duplex, listed for $480,000.
Shut up.
And I can send it to you.
You should have sent it to me before you're showing it to other people. What are you doing?
Each side rents for $1,400, so it rents for $2,800. I think it's a little bit on the lower side. Each side is a 2-bedroom, 1 bath. The client, of course, looks at that and says, well, wait a second, so I can put 25% down, which puts me at 125. Again, we're assuming 500,000 in that range. So you'd have a mortgage amount of 375. I mean, and you're going to have around $3,000 a month coming in. You're telling me I can put $125,000 down and come out with whatever that. I mean, I'd want to have real numbers, maybe $6,000 a year, $500 a month, something to that they would be in the black. So that's $6,000 on 125 is not some fantastic ROI, but it is an ROI of 4%,
yeah, 4
or 5%, something like that, where someone can feel like there's always going to be a need for housing. So from a rental standpoint, we disagree on whether that vehicle at $500,000 is appreciating or staying the same or depreciating. But to me, that's one of the big reasons that people jump in.
I don't think we disagree, actually, on that. I think we do cyclically. I believe we're at the top of a cycle, that the cycle is changed. We're going through the cycle. We're ending the mania part of the cycle, and we're going towards normalcy, which is painful. But I do think 30 years from now, 100% values are higher. Guaranteed. I'll bet everything on it. 30 years from now, real estate prices will be higher.
You want to go $100 on that for Oceanside?
Yeah, for 30 years. We have to.
For 30 years, I'll call you up.
What's the interest on the $100 for 30 years? Do we get 5%? Dan Chapman's chiming in here. What's up? Michael Penny says Shadow Ridge. Yep, correct. Dan Chapman says the bank won't lend you a single dollar to buy their own stock, but what about real estate? Yeah, so when you talk about stocks versus real estate, obviously very, very different vehicles there.
Absolutely.
And we're kind of just talking about markets, right? So the market, reflecting on real estate versus other things, and the government is involved. And when we talk about the Fed having to unwind all of this, they still have $3.6 trillion worth of mortgage-backed securities that they have to unleash into the marketplace. And I do believe also that the stock market's going to go down as a result of that. Because what you're going to see, and this will be a good thing, it'll be a very healthy thing, and I believe this administration is all about trying to have a healthy and real economy, you're going to see interest rates go up, which would be good for the savers, the people who don't like risk. You might be able to, can you imagine you got 2 or 3% on a CD?
Yeah.
That'd be something, right? Wouldn't that make sense? Does it make any sense that you give your money to the bank and they pay you 0.4% for it?
Yeah.
The hell is that? That's stupid. But it's because we don't have a real market right now. We have a market that's been created, that was created by government to try to avoid the worst case scenario. And we did. It worked. It worked.
Yeah.
So, but now we got to come back. We have to have that come to Jesus moment with the economy. And that come to Jesus moment is the Fed selling off all the assets that it purchased in order to prop up the economy and prop up the stock market. So if you look at the graph of the stock market for the past 10 years and the interest rate market for the past 10 years, and you look at other macro economic items like the GDP, these things don't add up. It doesn't make sense. The correlations, they don't make sense. So something's got to give. I believe the stock market will go lower as interest rates go higher. People will get out of the stock market and get into the more safer bonds. Or if you can get 2 or 3% of the CD, how many people would rip their money out of the stock market today and stick it in that and go, I'm cool with that?
Yeah, getting 2.5%. And certainly we both agree that a shift, a change is good, is a good thing in the long run.
100%.
Because otherwise, an entry-level home, if we continue to appreciate for the next 15 years and our children are trying to crack into the market, a $500,000 house is now all of a sudden a $900,000 house. It doesn't make sense. So there needs to be an adjustment and a shift. I'm not convinced that shift is happening now. That's where I'm still waiting.
Okay, so you're not convinced yet.
I'm not convinced.
You're not convinced. Okay, so these cycles are also great opportunities for buyers to get into a market that they may not be able to get into otherwise, right? Like if you're just barely able to afford, let's say, $475,000 to buy a house. You can still get some stuff. There's still stuff. I mean, even in Oceanside right now, I can pull up stuff right here that's available for sale. I saw a couple for $465. Actually, there was 2 homes I saw for $465 just last week.
Yeah.
That are single family detached homes in Oceanside you could buy. So it's still there for you.
And to your point, the demographics that I'm talking about are newest buyers. Hey, I've got equity in my home, or Mom, I'm getting a loan for the down payment. Those aren't. I don't want to say that those aren't solid buyers, but those aren't long-term buyers. Those are assisted buyers that are propping up the market. I just don't see a situation where all of a sudden, if the market changes today, there are a lot of people that jump in and go, in my opinion, this is good value. In my opinion, that's what happens. If the market drops, we see an influx of demand of buyers go, this is a great opportunity. That property just sold at X. I'm getting X minus 5%. Yes, I'll take it.
What you're forgetting is that this real estate market in San Diego is always hot or cold. It's never warm. It's not. It's hot and cold. Hot, cold, hot, cold, hot, cold. It's all about momentum, right? When was the last time we had a balanced market? Do you ever remember a balanced market in San Diego real estate? Has one ever existed where we had just a balanced?
I don't think that it goes from seller's market to buyer's market overnight. It doesn't go from one extreme to the other.
It has the last 2 times.
But based on, I want to wrap my head around that, which is based on how that there hasn't been, that we've never had an experience of an equilibrium market within certain pocket communities and the local market of San Diego.
As it's shifting, but I mean, I haven't seen or experienced like a balanced market. I haven't seen one. I've been here 13 years. I haven't seen one.
I'll look. I'm trying to think about situations where there has been 4 months inventory.
Maybe ever. Yeah. Have you ever heard anyone being like, "Yeah, the real estate market's pretty balanced right now"? Yeah.
So today's market, what do you feel today's market is? Is it hot? Is it a seller's market? Is it a buyer's market? Is it in?
Right now we're in transition.
So does that make it an equilibrium market?
No. What it makes it an ignorant market. So you have, because buyers and sellers don't know what's going on, right?
So we're going from a hot market to a cold market, but we're going to hit a yellow market. We're going to hit some third.
No, it's the comp bombs are what change everything.
Okay.
And those only come through reality, experience. The market itself, and most markets, are usually a result of what people are thinking or feeling, and it's emotional, it's not fact-based, or in this case, it's lack of knowledge. So most home buyers don't know what's going on. Most home sellers don't know what's going on. So until they do actually know what's going on, that's when we know what we actually have. Right now, as the majority of the people who are involved in the transactions still think it is what it was at the beginning of the year. They still think it's a hot market. So sellers still expect to get top dollar.
I agree.
Buyers are still expecting to have a frenzy and multiple offers and have to do all sorts of crazy shit to buy a house. So until they actually know what's happening and experience it and feel it, and that spreads out to the majority of those people involved in transactions, we won't really know. But I believe when we get to that point, what we'll find is that buyers are going to have the upper hand. In fact, I did a video over the weekend talking about this, and several people commented on it, like a few hundred. And I think there were several people there who said comp bombs have already happened in my neighborhood. Here. I got some zip codes, got some private messages, looked them up, definitely happening. But also, I had agents reach out to me and say, hey, great video, it was really timely, made a lot of sense. Let me tell you something, you're right. Like, we have a home that's, that we're in contract with, and there are buyers doing inspections, and literally, whatever that buyer asks for before the contingency period's up, request for repairs, whatever they ask for, they're getting it. They don't know that, but they're getting it because
and that's fear-based.
We don't have another buyer. The seller wants to sell. The home's been on the market 60 plus days. There's no one behind them. The seller is up our butts to sell this thing. Pretty much whatever they ask for, they're going to get it. Now, they don't know that. The buyer doesn't know that.
Right. I agree that there's opportunity, and there's always opportunity. I don't feel like it's a situation where now all of a sudden our advice is get out now, and buyers go in and ask for a $30,000 price reduction, because what are they going to say? They don't have another buyer. I don't see the sweeping statements across the board that make. I agree with something that you said, which is it takes time for buyers and sellers to learn the market. And right now, the average consumer still feels like it's a seller's market. It's the same as it was at the beginning of the year, which is not true. And I don't know how long that transition is going to be.
3 to 6 months. It'll take 3 to 6 months. You need comp bombs. That's the only thing that makes the market real.
How long is our bet out? Is it a year out?
6 months.
Is it 6 months out?
6 months. So it takes comp bombs. Those are already happening though. But that's what brings you to reality, is when you go, the house sold. Did you see, honey? The house that was for sale, they sold it. Did you look it up yet? No, let's get on Zillow and look. That must be a mistake. It says $650. I thought it was listed for $750. Didn't the one down the street sell for like $765? It's that real. That has to happen. Those homes need to sell. The comp bombs need to come. People's curiosity. They find out, or they go to list their house. They talk to an agent. They go, well, here's the thing.
Yeah.
This house just sold over here. It's killing you because it just sold. It's recent. It's the best comp. They're going to use it in the appraisal for sure, and it sold for way less than what you guys are wanting to get. So those conversations need to start happening more and more. The bombs need to start landing more and more, and then we'll know really where we are and what's going to happen. So yeah, I'm not saying that buyers should expect. There's still homes that are getting multiple offers. There's still lots of that going on, but there's also lots of the other stuff going on. So the mixture, the chemical soup of the market, the real estate market, is getting changed.
Right.
And my suggestion in the video I made over the weekend was for listing agents not to do price reductions. Don't do price reductions. If your seller's willing to concede some money, then offer more buy-side commission. Offer allowances to upgrade stuff. Maybe even go do some of those upgrades. But just dropping the price a lot of times doesn't do anything unless it's a significant price drop. it really isn't doing anything. You're just negotiating before you have an offer.
No, I disagree. I think that I've seen it happen so many times that you reach some kind of tipping point, and sometimes you're $15,000 away from that tipping point. And logic would say, why would a buyer not look at my house now at X, but they would look at it at X minus $15,000? And I don't have a great answer to that other than I've seen it work from experience, that all of a sudden you get a property that is quote unquote stale because it's been on the market for 60 days, and you are talking to a seller about a price reduction, and they do a small price reduction of $15,000 to $20,000, and all of a sudden you end up with multiple offers.
I promise you that's not going to work right now.
How much money do I have to bet? Where is that giant wallet?
Yeah, where is that thing? I can see it. How could you not? It's the biggest thing in the studio right now. I promise you that won't work right now. You do a $10,000 or $15,000 price reduction, nothing. I don't care what the price point is. That is not going to do a thing. But especially for homes that are $700,000, $800,000, or the $1 million homes. The $1 million plus market is very slow. The 1.5 plus market even slower. But if you have a place listed at $1,075,000 and you drop it to $1,025,000, it's nothing. I mean, it's nothing. But if you take that $50,000 and you apply it towards offering, more buy-side commissions, you could offer 5% to, the buy agent there and still have money to play with. If your seller is willing to give up that $50,000, and if you can offer the buy-side 5%, that's something to talk about at Caravan. That's something to call other agents about and say, by the way, that's something to send out into your database of agents that you've worked with in the past that I know you keep very close to your chest.
I think you underestimate the coercion that a real estate agent has. I mean, I agree that if a 5% commission that's purely on the buyer's side, sometimes the entire commission is 5%, but purely being offered to the buyer's agent, that agent is going to recommend to their client that they show it, that they see it. But I think that pricing is pricing, and the condition will still speak for itself.
That buyer's agent can still concede some of that if they want to, right? It's all a negotiation. They can write it up however they want. I mean, at the end of the day, you're trying to net money for your seller, and your list price is where you're starting the negotiation, right? It's the beginning point of a negotiation is the listing price. So if you start changing that before you have offers, there couldn't be a weaker thing to do in a negotiation, could there? I mean, is there a weaker thing that you could possibly do? I can't think of one. So if you can avoid doing something that's super weak at the very beginning of negotiation, I would recommend that. And if you can do something that will also incentivize people to get traffic to the home, I would also recommend that. And that's why I would say that that's a smarter thing to do than just reduce the price, especially when we're seeing lots of price reductions. Now, a price reduction might work in a hot market where someone is just out of their minds with where they started, and then you bring it back down to reality, and then it works because the market's hot and there's so many buyers that, okay. But in a softening market that we're in right now, in my mind, we're turning, the cycle is going through, a price reduction is not the way to go. It's just not. That's my opinion.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. And I disagree, but
you can disagree, and you have more
Thank
experience
you.
selling homes than I do. That's for sure. And it may work, and I would trust you if you were my agent. I would listen to you. But I believe that as a whole, from an industry standpoint, when we flood the market with these price reductions, it does not help us. It does not help anyone. But I do think if we can work with one another and we can get more interest from buyers that are out there, how do we do that? Well, we have to start marketing properties differently. We have to start talking to agents. We may have to start doing Caravan. We may have to start calling agents saying, do you have a buyer? I know you work this area. Here's what I've got. And if we don't have something to offer them, if we don't have something that's unique, it's just like, oh yeah, it's 2.5. Okay, well, my clients didn't point it out as something that they're interested in, so
yeah, it's just another one.
Just another one that they've skipped over.
So many, as you pulled up.
I have so many. So
right.
How do I stick out? Okay, hey, we're offering 4% to the buy side, and one of the really good listing agents I know in Los Angeles, who is a stud and has been in the game for a long time, said, hey, I started offering 3 to 3.5 on all my buy sides at the beginning of the year, because I guess it started getting slower in LA earlier than it did here. Apparently New York has slowed down a lot. Vancouver has slowed down a lot as well. I don't watch those markets, but people that I know who watch those markets have given me that feedback.
I have several listings where we're currently offering 3%. And to that point, that I would say, my opinion, increasing the commission to the agent by 2% to get it to 5%, or decreasing the price by 2%. My recommendation: decrease the price by 2%.
Okay.
But different.
So 2% would be on a
$700,000 house is $15,000.
Yeah. So you think
Rounding the numbers to make it larger.
So you think that would be a smarter move in this market?
Then offering an additional $15,000 to an agent. I do, because I think that.
I think you'll get nothing from that price reduction, unless it takes you from like 710 to under 700 or something like that.
Right. No, I understand. Yeah.
It won't do anything. Literally nothing, other than just sow weakness. It's just blood in the water. There's no one who's like hasn't seen that home. You know what I mean? That's in the market for that type of property in that area. That's just. I mean, it's my opinion, but
Yeah.
I just don't feel like it's, especially in that case. I mean, even in $1 million house, it's only 20,000, 2%,
Right.
which isn't much
Absolutely.
to the price of the house.
To the price of the house. Absolutely.
But to the motivation for the buyer's agents to show that house.
Yeah, $20,000 is a lot.
It's a lot.
Is a lot of money to an individual.
Absolutely. So when you need to goose the market, goose the people who move the market.
I just think that it makes it very difficult to go back. If we offer 5% and it doesn't create a tipping point, now what? Now we also are going to reduce the price.
Well, it's one or the other, right? So if you give it up on the price and push it to the commission offer, and that doesn't work, then in my opinion, reducing the price wouldn't have worked. You know, so if you had reduced the price, you would be reducing it again. We've seen that too. A lot of multiple price reductions.
Right.
That's another thing that's super
So
scary.
to your point, where you're saying $700,000 listing, you're offering 3% to the buyer's agent. You're going to increase that by 2% to 5%. If it doesn't get you the activity, then bring it back down to 3% and then go for a $50,000 price reduction.
You could do that.
Something like that.
Sure. Yeah. Absolutely. You still retain the opportunity to do that. Or you could keep the buy-side commission higher and reduce the price and see. I mean, it just depends on how motivated your sellers are.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that becomes the hard pill for a seller to swallow.
It does, but at the same time, you know, if someone wants to move a property, and bottom line is, it's not priced right, right? We know that.
Right.
If a property's priced right, it moves.
Yeah, I mean, I tell sellers that it takes 3 things to move a property: condition, access, and price. So if you have a property that is in great condition and is priced right, but nobody can see it because nobody has access, it's going to be hard to sell it. Mm-hmm. In the same way that a property that's priced right that everybody can see, but the condition is really challenging, there's investors, but a lot of people get turned off by that. So that's why my argument always becomes, let's get good condition, let's get people in there, and then if it's not moving, the obvious problem is price. Mm-hmm. So it's an interesting, what I like are different models. Mm-hmm. Whether it's the Redfin model or whatever model we want to talk about, what you're describing here is a different model. Mm-hmm. A model of, here's a new carrot.
Well, I just know that compensation drives behavior. And if you have a listing, you are asking other real estate agents to bring you a buyer. Most likely, right? Like, you'd love to find the buyer too, but most likely the buyer is going to come from other real estate agents. So if that is where the buyer is going to come from, I want to incentivize the people who are going to be doing that activity that's going to consummate the sale.
I wonder how many agents look at that.
Look at the buy-side commission?
At the CBB, at the cooperating broker compensation.
Every single one of them. Are you crazy?
I don't.
How long has it been since you've been a buyer's agent?
No, I represent buyers now.
But I mean,
I couldn't tell you, the duplex that I showed in Chula Vista, I couldn't tell you if it was offering 1.5 or 5. And maybe I should. My opinion is it shouldn't influence whether I show that property or not.
Well, did you bring it to the buyer, or did they find it?
There was actually 2. One I brought and one he brought.
Yeah. So if they bring it to you, you have to show it. There's
Right.
no but if you're finding it, probably worth taking a look. You know, there's some weird shit out there. You haven't run into it, obviously, but there's some weird shit.
Yeah.
There's some sellers who
certain
offer
agents.
like $100.
Certain agents that I look at.
Yeah. So, I mean, you're going to want to take a look. But yeah, I think you can't just expect making that change to automatically by itself work, because that's not going to repopulate it.
Right. No,
out into-
absolutely.
You're going to have to do some
Then you
hustle.
got to hustle.
You got some hustle. You got to call offices. You know, you got to drop a flyer off. Hey, 5% buyer's commission. You know,
Right.
you
I
have,
like this subtle
yeah,
slide.
here you go, 5% buyer's commission.
I'm just going to slide this right across.
This guy's flyer. Got donuts over here too. You have to do some hustle behind it, but it's a very big selling point. If I'm at Caravan, I'm saying, hey, I have this listing. It's been on the market 60 days. My seller agreed to a price reduction. I decided to offer you guys more money to sell it. 5%, sell this house. Everyone's going to go, whoa, wait, what do you got? Let me go look at my database. Let me go see if I can find someone who might want to look at that thing, right? So that, I think compensation drives behavior. You want to incentivize the proper behavior.
I like it.
So it's a different way to look at it, because when you reduce the price, it's such a bad look, and especially if the market is softening, which I believe it is, the last thing you want to be doing is chasing it down. That's the last thing you want to be doing, especially if it ends up moving quickly. Like, you don't want to be on that third price reduction. You're going to get fired. You know, and then some other agent's going to come in and put it way lower.
And offer 5% to the buyer's agent.
and
he'll
sell it in a
say,
week.
hey, I talked to Derrick Evans. All right.
So I win, and that's it. Kathy says she's getting more and more calls from agents raising commissions. Good. Good on those agents for taking the effort. You know, I've had agents come in here through List It Live, and they say, you know what, I'm doing an open house on Saturday every Sunday until it sells. I love it. When agents are getting aggressive for their sellers,
absolutely,
that's awesome. Like, that's badass. I love that. That's what I would expect from my agent. Like, yo, I want to sell my house. If whatever you thought was going to work isn't working, you best do something else. You know what I mean?
Right.
There needs to be more activity. If you told me not to do an open house and the house isn't selling, we need to be doing an open house. If you did an open house and it didn't sell, we need to do something else. Like, let's keep working, keep hustling. It's going to take a lot of hustle to sell homes, in my opinion, over the next few years. But it's going to be an amazing time for buyers. So I win again. Steve, thank you so thank you so much for your time.
The scoring around here seems really fixed.
Well, Rob decided to bet on my side, so I know that.
Well,
Kathy says that every agent looks at CBB.
She does say every agent looks at CBB.
And so everyone keeps agreeing with me. So I think that's it.
Boy,
that's the end of the
tough crowd.
That's the end of it. Yeah, it was a great discussion. I love the fact that you stick with your guns, and who knows, you could be right.
And it could cost you $100.
It could cost me $100.
And Rob,
which I'll give to you in pennies. Count on that shit. But we'll see. We'll see.
I'll create a baseline today. Rob, I'm going to add you as a friend, and we'll create a baseline.
Okay.
So that way we can figure out, we'll do Oceanside.
Do Oceanside?
Yeah.
Just all of us across the board?
Yeah, I'm comfortable with that.
Okay.
Then it's easy.
Okay. I'm good with Oceanside. Oceanside I called Oceanside in 2013.
We're saying 6 months, right?
I think Rob was on the radio show where I called Oceanside in 2013 as the next market to skyrocket. And back then it was actually, we were looking at like 2-bedroom ocean view condos for like $375 and going, oh wow, yeah, this looks like a good deal. Easily doubled since then. So I've been very pro Oceanside. I just want to get that out there. I was very pro Oceanside at the time. Now, I don't know. But we could probably talk all day about this. I imagine we both have other things we need to go do.
Thank you for the input. I love the input.
Great stuff. Awesome comments. You guys are amazing. Share this post if you want to make your friends who are interested in real estate or who might be realtors, you want to give them a little something to talk about. This would be something that would be great to share. We appreciate you helping us make the rest of San Diego smarter here on Smarter San Diego. We'll see you next time.